Hello students, this is your economics teacher INR. I hope you are well and utilizing the time wisely.
In the previous class, you learned about meaning of production, features of the factors of production, kinds of factors of production and the production function. Today, you are going to learn about law of variable proportions, law of return to scale, economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. Please watch this video very carefully till the end. Fine, let us enter into the topics. First, we will discuss law of variable proportion. Student, take the page number 58. Law of variable proportions or short-run production function. The law examines the relationship between one variable factor and output, keeping the quantities of other factors fixed. The law stated that if all other factors are fixed and one input is varied in the short run, the total output will increase at an increasing rate at a first instance, be constant at a point and then eventually decrease. Marginal product will become negative at last. According to G. Stickler, as equal increment of one input are added, the inputs of other productive service being held constant. Beyond a certain point, the resulting increments of product will decrease, that is, the marginal product will diminishes. As the proportion of one factor is a combination of factor is increased, after a certain point, first the marginal and then the average product of the factor will diminish. Assumptions. The law of variable proportion or short-run production function is based on the following assumption. First assumption, only one factor is variable while others are held constant. That is, only one factor is made variable and the other factors are kept constant. Second, all units of variable factor are homogeneous. That is, the variable factor units are homogeneous. That is, all the units of variable factors are of equal efficiency. Third, the product is measured in physical units. Fourth, there is no change in the state of technology. That is, the state of technology does not change or remains the same at a given point of time. Fifth, there is no change in the price of the product. That is, input price remains unchanged. Total product. It refers to the total amount of commodity produced by the combination of all inputs in a given point of time. Summation of marginal product, that is, TP is equal to sigma MP, where TP is equal to total product, MP is equal to marginal product. Average product. It is the result of the total product divided by the total units of the input employed. In other words, it refers to the output per unit of the inputs. Mathematically, AP is equal to TP by N, where AP is equal to average product, TP is equal to total product, N is equal to total units of input employed. Marginal product. It is the addition or the increment made to the total product when one more unit of the variable input is employed. In other words, it is the ratio of the change in the total product to the change in the units of the input. It is expressed as MP is equal to delta TP by delta N, where MP is equal to marginal product, delta TP is equal to change in the total product, delta N is equal to change in the units of inputs. The law of variable proportion is explained with the help of the following schedule and diagram. In table 3.1, units of variable factor or labor are employed along with other factor of production. The table illustrates that there are three stages of production. Though total product increases steadily at first instant, constant at a maximum point and then diminishes. It is always positive forever, while total product increases, marginal product increases up to a point and then decreases. Total product increases up to the point where the marginal product is 0. When total product tends to diminishes, marginal product become negative. In diagram 3.1, the number of worker is measured on x-axis while TPL, APL and MPL are denoted on y-axis. The diagram explains the three stages of production are given in a above table. Stage 1. Stage 1 ends where the average product reaches its highest or maximum point. During this stage, the total product, the average product and the marginal product are increasing. It is notable that the marginal product in this stage increases, but in a later part it starts declining. The marginal product starts declining, it is greater than the average product, so that the average product continues to rise. Here, in the first stage, MPL increases up to the third laborer and it is higher than the average product. So, that total product is increasing at an increasing rate. The tendency of total product to increase at an increasing rate stops at a point A and it begins to increase at a decreasing rate. This point is known as a point of inflection. Second stage. Stage second ends at the point where the marginal product is 0. In the second stage, the total product continues to increase but at a diminishing rate. The marginal product and the average product are declining but are positive. At the end of the second stage, the total product is maximum and the marginal product is 0. Here, the second stage, MPL decreases up to 6th unit of labor, where MPL curve intersect the x-axis. At 4th unit of labor, MPL is equal to APL. After this, MPL curve is lower than the APL. TPL increases at a decreasing rate. Third stage. In the stage, the marginal product become negative. The total product and the average product are declining. Third stage of production shows that the 6th unit of labor is marked by negative MPL and APL continues to fall but remains positive. After the 6th unit, TPL declines with the employment of more unit of variable factor labor. Next, relationship among total, average and marginal product. First stage, total product. Initially, it increases at an increasing rate and then increases at a decreasing rate. Marginal product, at the beginning it increases, then reaches a maximum and starts to decrease. Average product, at the first instant it increases, then attains maximum. Second stage, total product continues to increase at a diminishing rate at reaches maximum. Marginal product continues to diminish and becomes equal to 0. Average product is equal to MP and then begins to diminish. Third stage. Total product is diminishes. Marginal product become negative. Average product continues to diminish but always greater than 0 or positive. The stage of operation. In the stage 1, the fixed factor is too much in relation to the variable factor. Therefore, in stage 1, marginal product of the factor is negative. On the other hand, in the stage 3, the marginal product of the variable factor is negative. Therefore, a rational producer will not choose to produce in stage 1 and 3. He will choose only the second stage to produce where the marginal product of both the fixed factor and the variable factor are positive. At this stage, the total product is maximum. The particular point at which the producer will decide to produce in the stage depends upon the price of the factors. The stage second represents the range of rational production decisions. Secondly, you are going to learn about loss of return to scale or long run production function. In the long run, all factor can be changed. Return to scale studies the change in output when all factors or inputs are changed. An increase in scale means that all inputs or factors are increased in the same proportion. Here, in the long run, there is no fixed factor. All factors are variable. The loss of return to scale explains the relationship between output and the scale of inputs in the long run when all the inputs are increased in the same proportion. Assumption: loss of return to scale or long run production function are based on the following assumption. First assumption: all the factors of production are variable but organization is fixed. Second, there is no change in technology. Third, there is perfect competition in the market. Fourth, outputs or returns are measured in physical quantities. Three processes of return to scale. First process: increasing return to scale, constant return to scale, diminishing return to scale. First, increasing return to scale. In this case, if all inputs are increased by 1%, output increased by more than 1%. For example, if all the inputs are increased by 5%, the output increased by more than 5%, that is by 10%. In this case, the marginal product will be rising. Second stage, constant return to scale. In this case, if all inputs are increased by 1%, output increase exactly 1%. That is, a 5% increase in all the factors will result in an equal proportion of 5% increases in the output. Here, the marginal product is constant. Third, diminishing return to scale. In this case, if all inputs are increased by 1%, output increased by less than 1%. That is, if all the factors are increased by 5%, the output will increase by less than 5%, that is by 3%. In this pass, marginal product will be decreasing. Diagrammatic illustration. The three laws of return to scale can be explained with the help of a diagram below. In the diagram 3.2, the movement from point A to point B represents increasing return to scale, because between these 2 points output has doubled but output has tripled. The law of constant returns to scale is implied by the movement from the point B to point C, because between these 2 points inputs have doubled and output also has doubled. Decreasing return to scale are denoted by movement from the point C to point D, since doubling the factors from 4 units to 8 units produced less than the increased inputs, that is by only 33.33%. Last, we will discuss economics of scale and diseconomies of scale. First, economics of scale. Economies means advantages. Scale refers to the size of unit. Economies of scale refers to the cost advantages due to the large size of production. As the volume of production increases, the overhead cost will come down. The bulk purchase of inputs will give a better bargaining power to the producer, which will reduce the average variable cost too. All these advantages are due to the large scale production, and these advantages are called economies of scale. Here, scale of production refers to the ratio of factors of production. This ratio can change because of availability of factors. The scale of production is an important fact or affecting the cost of production. Every producer wishes to reduce the cost of production, hence he uses an advantage of economy and of scale. This economy of scale is affected both by the internal and external factors of the firm. Accordingly, economies of scale can be classified into two types by Marshall. First, internal economies and external economies. Economies of scale reduces the cost of production, and diseconomies of scale increase the cost of production. Internal economies of scale. The term internal economies of scale refers to the advantages enjoyed by the production units which cause a reduction in the cost of production of the commodity. For example, a firm enjoying the advantages of an applications of most modern machinery, generation of internal capital, and improvements in managerial skills, etc., are sure to reduce the cost of production. They are of various types. First, technical economies. When the size of the firm is large amount of capital can be used. There is possibility to introduce up-to-date technologies. This improves productivity of the firm. Here, research and development strategies can be applied easily. Second, financial economies. Big firm can float shares in the market for capital expansion, while small firms cannot easily float shares in the market. Third, managerial economics. Large-scale production facilitates specialization and delegations. Fourth, labor economics. Large-scale production implies greater and many divisions of labor. This leads to specializations which enhance the quality. This increases the productivity of the firm. Fifth, marketing economies. In the content of large-scale production, the producer can both buy raw materials in bulk at a cheaper cost and can take the product to distinct market. They enjoy a huge bargaining power. Last, economies of survival. Product diversification is possible when there is a large scale production. This reduces the risk in production. Even if the market for one product collapses, market for other commodities upset it. Next, external economies of scale. When many firms expand in a particular area, that is, when the industry grows, they enjoy a number of advantages which are known as external economies of scale. This is not the advantage enjoyed by a single firm, but by all the firms in the industry due to the structural growth. External economics of scale refers to change in any factor outside the firm causing an improvements in the production process. This can take place in the case of industry also. These are the advantages enjoyed by the firms in an industry due to the structural growth. Important external economics of scale are listed below. First, increased transport facilities. Second, banking facilities. Third, development of township. Fourth, development of information and communication. Next, diseconomies of scale. The diseconomies of scale are disadvantages to a firm or an industry or an organization. This necessarily increase the cost of production of a commodity or service. Further, it delay the speed of the supply of the product to the market. These diseconomics of the scale of two types. First, internal diseconomics of scale and external diseconomics of scale. First, internal diseconomics of scale. When the scale of production increases beyond the optimum limit, its efficiency may come down. If a firm continues to grow and expand beyond the optimum capacity, the economics of scale disappear and the diseconomies will start operating. For example, if the size of a firm increases, after a point, the difficulty of management arises to that particular firm, which will increase the average cost of production of that firm. This is known as internal diseconomies of scale. Next, external diseconomies of scale. The term external diseconomies of scale refers to the threat or disturbance to the firm or an industry from factor lying outside it. For example, a bus strike prevents the easy and correct entry of the workers into the firm. Similarly, the rent of a firm increases very much if new economic units are established in the locality. On the other hand, beyond a certain stage, too much concentration and localizations of industries will create diseconomics in production, which will be common for all the firm in a locality. For example, the expansion of the industry is a particular area leads to high rents and high cost. These are the external diseconomics of this affects all the firms in the industry located in that particular region. That's all for today. We will continue in the next class. Finish the assignment by clicking the link below.